Feel the softness of kitten's fur and listen to the affectionate purr. I see it playfully chase the string and think life is such a beautiful thing. I feel the heat from the rays of the sun, and walks in the moonlight are always fun. To have a sweetheart who listens to me sing, oh, life I know is such a beautiful thing. I watch the bird's wings spread in the sky as its feathered arms carry it oh so high. And how about the happiness that a newborn brings? Can life not at times be a beautiful thing? What would I do should I ever lose my eyes? Would it make me any less wise? Would I not still have the gift of feeling, which goes to prove that life is such a beautiful thing? Should having no arms make me sad? Should having no legs make me mad? If life is, as I say, such a beautiful thing, then thankful for what I have should be my theme. I watch the bird's wings spread in the sky as its feathered arms carry it oh so high. And how about the happiness that a newborn brings? Can life not at times be a beautiful thing? I watch the bird's wings spread in the sky as its feathered arms carry it oh so high. And how about the happiness that a newborn brings? Can life not at times be a beautiful thing? But what I do should I ever lose my eyes? Would it make me any less wise? Would I not still have the gift of feeling, which goes to prove that life is such a beautiful thing? Should having no arms make me sad? Should having no legs make me mad? If life is, as I say, such a beautiful thing, then thankful for what I have should be my thing.
I chase the rainbow, I hope to find the end. I chase high hopes in a race to find a friend. I chase the rainbow, life has been so bad. I chase high hopes, think a friend could make it less sad. I chase the rainbow, thinking that you would be there. I chase high hopes, knowing someone has got to care. I chase the rainbow, only to find the sun. And when I got to the high hopes, I turned out to be a burnt one. So I forgot the rainbow, in the hopes that it's so untrue. All these high hopes I had, being with only you. I chase the rainbow, life has been so bad. I chase high hopes, think a friend could make it less sad. I chase the rainbow, thinking that you would be there. I chase high hopes, knowing someone has got to care. I chase the rainbow, only to find the sun. And when I got to the high hopes, I turned out to be a burnt one. So I forgot the rainbow, in the hopes that it's so untrue. All these high hopes I had, being with only you. I forgot the rainbow in the hopes that it's all untrue. All these high hopes I had of being with only you. That rainbow that I chased, the one that had no end. And my heart that's been erased has caused me never to be friend again, 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 again. And my heart that's been erased has caused me never to be friend again, 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 again. got the rainbow. I have met you today as I have met any stranger. I will make judgment on you as I do all the people that I meet. Then I will spend time with you and my judgment may or may not change. I could fall in love with an obsession from a weakness of emotion, or I could despise you for the very same reason. This is a repetitive routine I go through each week, just as the sun rises each day. Each week I watch you display your talent in a way that scares most conservatives. I also watch your audience, and a flame of hatred builds in me like a match dropped into gasoline. Their faces are blank as if they were dead. You have only one thing they want and desire. I see them talk to you with expectations they try to hide like scars of guiltiness. Some are smooth and experienced. I watch your mask of smiles and wonder how long the rubber can hold out before melting into an angered frown. You are an actress on the stage of lust, listening to lies of love. You live a hard and fast life which teaches you to be cold and ain't even appear emotionless. To me, you are a drifter, making the best of each stop. Days go by as trees grow taller and grass gets longer. But as our lives go on and people live and die, I only hope that there is room for us to be friends.
You want me to be, you might not see what you want to see. But if you got a minute, listen to what I gotta say. It's a brand new year, it's a brand new day. See, there's a gap between my culture and the life that I lead. So some will call me an apple, some a bad seed. They have no idea how my heart will bleed. Those words and attitudes are things I just don't need. I am what I am and I am sweet. You don't know how sweet I am what I am and I am sweet. You see, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of where I'm from. Those ones spreading racism, they're just fucking dumb. Now if you're looking at my life and say I've assimilated, you simplify things just a little more complicated. You see, I'm a modern day native with a modern day life. And modern day strife. You don't know how sweet I am what I am and I am sweet. You don't know how sweet I am what I am and I am sweet. Now see, other natives, they talk about the past, well I do the same, fuck that. See, I have no time to dwell on what's already done. I got too many things that I want to do. They don't include knives and they don't include guns. I'm talking about knowledge and sharing it too. See, my people need to learn how to cohabitate. Get rid of the anger, get rid of the hate. You got to stop for a minute and learn to educate. You see, in the end, we all have to communicate. I know there will a time to make a stand and time to fight, but if you do that, make sure the cause is right. Because if the cause is right and the cause is just, greater numbers of people will be backing you up. History has repeatedly shown to us natives and natives alone, because this is a big world and this world is our home. Now I've seen some beautiful people and ugly ones too, and there's no single color that comes into view. So the message I'm sending is not all that long. I just want the human race to be stronger than strong. Said I just want the human race to be stronger than strong. You don't know how sweet I am. You don't know how sweet I am. I am what I am and I am sweet. You don't know how sweet I am. I am what I am and I am sweet. We all have to be strong. Tonight, we all have to be strong. Peace.
Segulis wagway, Galakan dinio gets wagi sli wagi, niwa kadoloda, oni da ag and gwehwanege, ani, bojon, tonsei, okinapi, how, yonko, yukodonos. And, what I said, for those of you who are new here or just didn't understand what I said, is Segulis wagway, or hello everyone. Galakindi is my name. It translates to clouds passing over, and I am a member of the people of the Standing Stone First Nations here on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Delaware, and Huron nations, and Lenape nations on in an area that we call the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Treaty Territory. And that territory actually covers what is now known as the state of New York, up into the part that we call southwestern Ontario. And that's kind of the area that I am living in. I said Yanko Yukodona, or thank you, friends, for being here and joining for those who can. So, that being said, I will also be saving this pod after for anyone who misses any of it and or just wants to rewatch some of it, whatever the case might be. So, part of what we're talking about today is what is MMIWG and why are we still talking about it. Um, MMIWG stands for Missing, Murdered, Indigenous Women and Girls. Now, there's variations to that, which can also mean missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, two spirits, and men and boys, because it has it affects all Indigenous peoples, to be honest. And the primary and major focus is going to be on the women and girls, because in the two spirits, because those are the ones who are most affected, to be quite frank. And so today I wanted to share, because this new segment came out reflecting uh, a case that hits really close to home for me, primarily because it's right in my backyard. And so I wanted to get to that. But before we get to that, I also wanted to share a couple of clips here about other people who are standing up and trying to fight for this. And one of the women who has really been um, instrumental in the latest years in fighting for missing and murdered Indigenous women is a young lady by the name of Cambria Harris. Cambria Harris has really taken on this fight because her mother was murdered by a serial killer. So four women were actually killed by this serial killer, and she started this battle to get her mother searched for, and because she was advised by law enforcement that her mother had been basically dumped into a landfill. And when she asked for her mother to be searched for, the provincial government declined saying that it wasn't feasible, saying it wasn't safe, etc. So they put up every uh, excuse and that they could to not search for Cambria's mother. So I'm going to play a little segment here, which is a CBC, um, a, a short CBC special on Cambria Harris. It's only about 9 minutes long, so it's not very long, but it just covers who Cambria Harris is and why this is important for her to be part of this battle to really find out what she can about this. So let me get this started if I can. If I do this, and we will and welcome in. Twitch TV is garbage. Mama M got a new name. Nice. Yanko for being here and joining, and I hope that everybody can take something from this today's stream. Um, but this is Cambria Harris. Now I had Cambria on our stream about a year and a half ago now, when closer to the beginning of when she was started this battle with the provincial government of Manitoba to try to get her mother searched for, and she was muffled by law enforcement as far as what she was able to talk about. She was, and when she was able to talk to media, the media in turn edited and censored what they put out there for people to see. So no one ever truly got the whole picture that Cambria was trying to paint when it came to the hurdles that she had to overcome in trying to get this search done. So we're going to start with this. Actually, before we do that, I suppose what I should do is I should share the words before all else. And this is just it's a traditional, some will call it a prayer, some will call it an opening, you can call it what you will. But it's a tradition where we share a moment of words to allow us to reflect our positions in the events and communities that we belong to. So I'm going to share that first. We'll do our little intro, and then I'll go right into the Cambria Harris event. So let me get this started.
Gungilkwa zawadahan sios ona angadaswa ohandagali wadakwa. Ungwet su'a gwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gwet su'a tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas ni ikini ista ohun jage tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na ohun de su'a tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na onu kwat su'a tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na onu gat su'a tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gahi su'a tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gain tosla tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gojo su'a tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gondilio tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedidawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na ogwile su'a tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agweguaska jende do hwe nuni ni gwat nigula da de tinu haladas ne oji do angoa. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula. Agweguaska jende do hwe nuni ni gwat nigula da de tinu haladas ne iti sutugu ala diwalas. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula. Agweguaska jende do hwe nuni ni gwat nigula da de tinu haladas ne geli ni gawalaga. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula. Agweguaska jende do hwe nuni ni gwat nigula da de tinu haladas ne sugwat jia gukene galakwa. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula. Agweguaska jende do hwe nuni ni gwat nigula da de tinu haladas ne iti sata santana galakwa. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula. Agweguaska jende do hwe nuni ni gwat nigula da de tinu haladas ne oji stokwa sua. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula. Agweguaska jende do hwe nuni ni gwat nigula da de tinu haladas ne gele ni agwedige. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula. Agweguaska jende do hwe nuni ni gwat nigula da dachi dinu haladas ne sungwai diza. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula. Ono wa gali waho dungo no wani dizlade dogat tena zige nigoha nizigi aizoda sundala aizawasa. Tinu do hak ni gwat nigula.
I always grew up with that fear of ending up missing or murdered. And I always had that fear for my mother. And that fear became my worst living nightmare. You can be really, really angry at the world and people, or you can turn your grief around and turn it into something beautiful. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do, and that's by carrying on my mother's legacy through my advocacy. Camp Morgan started after we did blockades at the Birdie landfill. We did 3 days of blockades, and after the third day we decided that we were going to set up Camp Morgan as a tribute to my mother. When I go down to Camp Morgan, we're always doing something different. How's it going, bro? Good, nice seeing you. How's camp going? Back in January, we hung up 101 red dresses, and we've had a couple different other events since then. We've got a lot of community members to come out. We set up a teepee a couple weeks ago. Warriors at Camp Morgan do a good job at protecting camp. They just make sure that things are running smoothly. When we go to Camp Morgan, we're able to chat and explain how we got to where we are today and why we are who we are. Our family has an unfortunate history with landfills. In the late 1800s through the early 1900s, Morgan's great-grandmother, Ava Francis, lived in one. This was an article written when this all first happened on September 6, 1961, about my family. What does resettlement mean to the Indians involved? Don Francis lives on the eastern edge of the highway shack town. He is one of 8 people living in a 20-foot by 20-foot log and tar paper building. The one room has sleeping accommodations for only 4 persons and has no lights or water. In an atmosphere of flies and filth, the Francis family eats and rests from the glare of the summer sun. Asked why she and her people stayed on when life was so poor, Mrs. Francis replied by asking where the group could go. The only other place she claimed was a reserve, and there, if the people don't get rations from the Indian agent, they starve. When these kinds of things happen, it ignites a fire in us, and that fire was ignited over 100 years ago. The only difference was they tried to burn it out with numerous different kinds of colonial systems. My great-grandmother was a residential school survivor herself, and because of that, my grandmother was a survivor of the child welfare system, as well as my mother, who was also pushed through that system, and then she lost her kids to the system, being me, at the age of 6 years old, her only being 24 at the time. That was her downfall, was losing her kids, and when you lose your kids, you lose where your heart and your home is, and she lost that day, as well as her physical home. And you lose your home, you lose your kids, you start to go crazy, you lose your mind. And my mom struggled with mental issues a lot in the end years of her life. She used to sing to me, and I was always told that she was singing even before I was born. My mom used to take me all around the city on bus adventures. And I remember walking up and down Main Street as a kid, and my mom never hid the horrors of the world from me, and she always explained to me, this is what's happening to your mommy, this is why I can't be around, and I wish I could. My mom didn't even have a shack or a home, and she fought to survive, and that survival was taken away from her at the expense of someone else's hands. Indigenous women have walking targets on their back. I never felt safe growing up, and I don't leave my house past 6 p.m. I don't go across the street at a certain time because I'm scared that someone's going to stop and harass me, or I'm scared that I'm going to get robbed or taken. I don't take cabs, and I always tell someone what the license plate is and who I'm driving with, because that's what you got to do nowadays to protect yourself, because no one else is protecting you.
It is important for us to set the record straight. Investigators believe that the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are at the Prairie Green landfill north of the city.
People seem to think that it's easy or it's going to be extremely difficult, and it's going to be extremely difficult and tedious. She knows we're going somewhere. It's time to finally step up and break those generational curses and give my daughter a better chance at life.
Oh, let's go.
Intergenerational trauma follows, and history repeats itself. You fail us once, and then you continue to fail us 100 years later. My family went from, let's go this way, being forced off the reserve to living in a landfill to now it being a shocking reality of my mother being underneath lots of debris and trash.
Look at this. What is this?
The cries of our women get louder, and the anger within the families gets bigger.
Is this where your grandma is?
What we're left with is the potential task of searching for human remains across a 4-acre site that was 40 feet in depth, heavily compacted with 9,000 tons of wet, heavy construction clay, and distributed throughout the site was 250 tons of asbestos. In addition to that, we had 1,500 tons of animal remains strewn throughout the site, which would make it very difficult to discern human remains if we're conducting a search of that site. We made the very difficult decision as a service that this wasn't operationally feasible to conduct a search of this site.
Why and how did the system fail my mother, and why does it continue to happen to our Indigenous women? Yeah, it makes me sad that I have to put on this fight for my daughter, and that this is taking up my time and energy that I should be spending holding and caressing my kid. But I'm doing it for my daughter so that she can have a better future, and so that I can have a better future with her too, and that one day maybe we won't have to have to be so scared to go out and even just sit in our front yard as Indigenous women.
So that was done uh, probably about a year ago. Now, since that has been done, um, they finally got to search the government, the provincial government that was in office at the time that Canberra Harris started this fight was the PC government, or the Progressive Conservatives, as we call them here. And they were the ones who said they would not search the landfills. And Canberra Harris had gone to Ottawa and to continue this fight to find um, her mother. And the PC government was voted out. They are no longer in office. So we now have an NDP party that was in charge, and in Winnipeg, which is Winnipeg, Manitoba. Manitoba is the province. So the NDP, or New Democrat Party, got into office, and since they got into office about a year ago, they were um, instrumental in starting and negotiating with the federal government for funds to get this search um, created. So they had to do a study. They had to hire a company to do a study to say, is this possible? Because they were told it wasn't feasible to search for the remains of murdered women that were dumped into this landfill. So the study came back saying yes, it can be done and it can be done safely. So despite what the previous government had said, so they then negotiated funds with the federal government. So both the federal and provincial governments have put in, I believe it was $20 million each to get this search underway. So they built a healing lodge just on the landfill property for the families of the women who were believed to be there, and that's Mercedes Myron and Morgan Harris. So the search then got started in December. Now, since December, the they discovered the remains of two women already. So, in basically 3 months into the search, they were able to recover remains of two women um, in a search that they were told wasn't feasible and wasn't safe. Um, Yet it had been done safe. It is being done safely, and we've come across two women. So one of those women was in fact confirmed to be Morgan Harris. So Cambria's mother was found, which means that now Cambria can take her mother home and do a proper ceremony for her, and a proper burial, and not a landfill. So let me just see if I can find this. Okay.
in Manitoba. That's where the RCMP has made an announcement that many people have been waiting a long time to hear, confirming a search of a landfill has uncovered the remains of Morgan Harris, a First Nations woman murdered by a convicted serial killer 3 years ago. Linda Ward is looking into this story for us. So how did this all happen and reaction from the family?
Yeah, this has been a long time coming and, widely expected, but it's never news that you want to actually have confirmed. And RCMP confirming Morgan Harris's remains were discovered February 26th, so last month, during a search of the Prairie Green landfill that is north of Winnipeg. Experts had been searching for her remains and the remains of Mercedes Myron, both from Long Plain First Nation. Back since December, really, the remains of another person have been found in the search, but those have yet to be identified. And the family, of course, has been notified. Cambria Harris is Morgan's daughter, and she took to social media late yesterday, calling this a very bittersweet moment, saying, please keep our families in your hearts tonight and every day going forward as we trust this process. I believe both our families will bring both our loved ones home. Now, serial killer Jeremy Skibicki was convicted in July 2024 of 4 counts of first-degree murder in the killing of 4 women in Winnipeg in 2022. Harris, Myron, Rebecca Contois was 24 years old. Her remains were found in garbage pails near Skibicki's apartment and at Winnipeg's Brady Road landfill, as well as a still unidentified woman who's been given the name Buffalo Woman by community leaders. We still don't know where her remains are. Winnipeg police initially said that they wouldn't search this landfill, citing health and safety reasons. That led to a lot of anger from the family members, from the wider First Nations community members. And earlier this week, we even heard the PC party's interim leader apologizing to the families for refusing to do that search.
And this is a story that has gripped the entire country. We also heard from advocates, not just the families, who are now reacting to these developments.
Yeah, and we are hearing as well from the Premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew, who pledged during his election campaign to do this search, saying on social media last night, posting the police release saying, Morgan Harris, we honor you. A short statement from him there. As well, we're hearing from the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs saying no family should have to search in this way, yet their loved ones stood firm in their truth and refused to be silenced. It's through their love and determination that Morgan has been found. And Grand Chief Jerry Daniels from the Southern Chiefs Association said that he stood on Parliament Hill with 2 of Morgan's daughters in 2022, demanding a search for their mother. And they've put out a statement as well saying Morgan deserves so much more. Her story is a stark reminder of the urgent need for action at all levels on the national emergency of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit and gender diverse people. So relief for the family, being able to put her spirit to rest, but acknowledgement really that this never should have happened and the search for her remains never should have been fraught with so many barriers.
All right. Thanks so much for this, Linda.
You're welcome.
Okay, so part of the reason we wanted to discuss this tonight is recent news that's been coming up. So one of the other issues that came up recently in the news is a 14-year-old girl in the United States, Arizona, if I remember, went missing in February. She had run away from a group home, and her remains, or at least part of her remains, have been found. This is a story of a young girl named Emily Pike. So this is next thing I will share with you. This is not, I guess part of the issue with missing and murdered Indigenous women is that it's not history. This is not something that's happened, decades ago. It's been happening for decades, but it's still happening. And this is what we're hearing.
Welcome back. This morning, we're giving a voice to victims. like 14-year-old Emily Pike. She was found murdered, her body parts in trash bags on the side of the road outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Her brutal murder is sending shockwaves through her San Carlos Apache community where she was living. Emily was living in a group home at the time that she ran away in January, and hikers discovered her remains a couple weeks later. She was found in eastern Arizona, and her family is devastated.
And we don't know at this time, who is responsible, but I do know they mess with the wrong people. We are not going to be quiet. This is not going to, we want justice, and we're not going to be quiet until we get it.
Several vigils have been held to honor Emily Pike and to bring visibility to missing and murdered Indigenous people. Emily's killer is still out there this morning. Let's talk about how we get justice for Emily. I have two very special guests I want to welcome in. They got up very early this morning to be with us, and we're so grateful for that. Emily's uncle, Allred Pike Jr., is with us, and Mary Kim Titla is with us as well, who knows Emily's family and who's also the executive director of the organization United National Indian Tribal Youth. Welcome to you both. Allred, I'd like to begin with you, if I may, please. And might I just start by saying, on behalf of everyone at Court TV, we are so sorry for your loss. Allred, tell us about your niece, Emily, please.
Emily was just a teen, she was learning how to do her makeup. She was full of life. She was a happy young girl, no matter what the circumstance, she smiled. And all the pictures that are out there, you could see that beautiful smile of my niece. And that's the perfect example of who she was. She was always smiling.
Sunshine, just a picture of sunshine when I look at the photos of her. That's how I would imagine her, Allred. Mary Kim, you're also a member of the San Carlos Apache tribe that Emily belonged to. What can you tell us about the sentiment among the members of the community learning of Emily's murder?
This has been outrageous for us. It's been heartbreaking. We're going through all the phases of grief along with the family. Many of us, know the extended family and the relatives, and the fact that she is from our tribal community brings it to another level. It makes it more personal. We all have suffered some sort of trauma in our lives due to, the historical and generational trauma that we've experienced in our history. And many of us, others, including my own family, we have our own relatives who've gone missing and were found murdered. So we are experiencing, the sad. And we feel for the family very deeply. There's been an outpouring in our community surrounding the family, to support the family, to show solidarity and to show that we care. So people are coming together to walk and to have vigils and to march. And they're creating posters and T-shirts, and it's really been amazing to see that. We are alarmed at what happened, and everyone wants justice.
Yes, Mary Kim, and might I say, on behalf of all of us, we are sorry for the losses you've experienced. I understand you've had 3 relatives go missing, and we are so sorry, 3 female relatives, I should say, that you've experienced that. And when you come from that place of understanding and trauma, this just hits so much harder. Allred, tell me, when we think back, I'm sure you've gone over these facts of Emily's case in your mind zillions of times. We understand that she ran away from the group home. She had run away before. We understand police were called. What do you think might have happened? Do you think that somebody could have been trying to lure her? Do you think that she was targeted by someone trying to get her out of that group home and out of the safe place she was in and to do her harm?
That's a very, the possibility is there for someone to lure her out. I mean, from Mesa to where she was found is a good 80-mile drive. So from where she was at to where she ended up is way out there in the middle of nowhere. So questions kind of come up. How did she end up all the way back close to the reservation borders? Uh, who who would be able to do something like this? You know, is it somebody local? Is it did somebody from the valley bring her back down towards close to the reservation? The questions are out there. How, why? You know, it's just frustrating that we're not getting any answers at the moment.
Right. I'm sure it's incredibly frustrating. We know, Mary Kim, we know that the Department of Child Safety has opened up an inquiry into that group home where Emily was living. And we know that there's also a legal push in the House of Representatives right now with a bill to try to change the Amber Alert system to make sure that it includes Indigenous people. Your thoughts on these two components, please?
It's very important to have an Amber Alert for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. We know that this is an epidemic. Indigenous women have the highest rates when it comes to missing and murdered Indigenous or people. And so this is very important. We want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. There have been too many cases, and we're very concerned, that if someone else goes missing, what's the response time? We all know that there were so many things that went wrong in this particular case, and the family was not notified very quickly. The tribal community did not learn about this issue until a week or two later, and it's very alarming. So having an Amber Alert is very important. To address this issue, it is widespread, and we've have others in our community that are still missing and have not been found. And what's really alarming is that the perpetrator or perpetrators in this case are still on the loose. So obviously, there is some level of fear in the community. They're still out there. And again, Emily deserves justice. The family deserves justice, deserve closure.
Yes, they sure do. We're going to continue following the case. I want to have you both back on again sometime soon. Mary Kim, Allred, thank you both so much for talking about this very important case. We appreciate you, and we send you our love. And as we head to break, let's keep remembering the victim of this case, Emily Pike. We're keeping her at the forefront of the story as authorities continue searching for her killer or killers. She was only 14 years old. Her favorite color was pink, and her uncle says he'll always see that little girl smiling back at him. We're going to continue honoring Emily Pike by following her case as we continue fighting for justice. We'll be right back.
Okay, well, this is again fresh news. So, in answer to your question, Twitch, we have a history of what we call residential schools in Canada. In the USA, they called them boarding schools. These were institutions where children were taken away from their communities, taken away from their parents, put into these institutions to assimilate them into a Eurocentric system. And these schools were deemed as sources of trauma, intergenerational trauma that happened from from generation to generation. Part of what happens is that when you spend so much time into an institution from a young age, your language is being taken away, your culture is being taken away, the way that you dress has been forced to change, and you're being constantly told that your culture is evil. Over time, you start to believe that when it's being told to you over and over and over and over. And so the other thing that is happening is that you get abused when you at the beginning when you try to speak your language. You're dealing with abuse or repercussions of doing that. When you try to wear your traditional clothing, when you try to um, do your own ceremonial prayers, and every time that you get punished for doing these things, it tends to break down your spirit little by little, and which is what the residential schools were doing. And these institutions were funded by federal governments, both the U.S. and Canada, and they were run oftentimes by the churches. So, particularly the Catholic Church was probably the biggest church, but there were Protestant churches and United churches that ran these institutions and did some very horrendous things to children, to the point where uh, they were never able to celebrate their birthdays. They were never heard the word "I love you," um, and so when these children grow up into adults, they have no parenting skills, and they have no uh, inter um, what is it inter oh another word. They have no way of interpersonal relations skills, so they don't know how to communicate with their children. And so what ends up happening is because they have lived a life of abuse, they tend to become the abusers. And so many children were being abused, indigenous children were being abused by their parents, primarily because their parents didn't know how to parent. Um, they were never taught those skills because a lot of them spent much of their early formative years in these residential schools and uh, boarding schools across Turtle Island. So that was part of the problem. And now, what then happens as today is once these schools closed, and they didn't close until the late 90s. Here in Canada, the last residential school closed in like 1997. In the States, I believe it was probably right around that same time, 97, 98, somewhere around there. And so this issue then became, what do we do? How do we still continue to assimilate children into the society that we want them to be in? So, because that mentality is still there, that colonial sentiment of, you know, indigenous people are less than, uh, they had to figure out how they were going to replace these residential schools and boarding schools. So they came up with a fostering system and a group home system. So children now, instead of being uh, kind of taken care of within their own communities, they were separated from their communities and put into fostering homes and put into to group homes. And at the same time, just like in the residential schools, many of these children were put in foster homes were separated not only from their families, like their parents, but also from their siblings. So they had no connection, and so they're still losing these connections, and still dealing with systemic issues that continue today. And so one of the parts of Canada, Indigenous children make up 60 to 70, or even in some parts of it, up to 80% of youth are in the fostering system, are Indigenous, um, which is a huge kind of unequal um, representation, um, overrepresentation. So, like one of the guests said as well, is that some of our relatives are still missing. Hence, the whole missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two spirits, and gender diverse people, is that we are still missing people. Now, anybody who's been in my stream for any length of time will know who Mary Lou Smoke is. Mary Lou Smoke and her husband her late husband Dan Smoke, have been mentors. They've been guides and friends of ours for the last, around 30 years. And they came on stream and they would talk about traditions and ceremonies, etc. One of the things that Mary Lou has been doing, and for the last 30 years, is talking about her sister. Because Mary Lou had a sister named Debbie who lived in Toronto, and Debbie was murdered. And when the police went to Debbie's home to investigate, they did a very poor job. They did not seal the apartment. They did not. They allowed the landlord to go in there and take what he wanted from the apartment and etc. So I'm going to give you a little segment here of Mary Lou talking about her sister. So you can kind of hear it from her own perspective.
She is not just a statistic. She is my sister.
It has been 26.
Hold on, let me turn up the volume there.
She is not just a statistic. She is my sister.
It has been 26 years since Mary Lou Smoke's sister was found dead.
I will never let the world forget what happened to my sister Debbie. And so now more people are going to find out about it.
Now she's being immortalized thanks to a new project by the Canadian Library.
Canadian Library is an art installation that was created to help start really important conversations and to share the true history of Canada.
It's believed that more than 4,000 Indigenous women have gone missing or have been killed over the past 30 years. Now, they will remember them through books covered in Indigenous fabric.
Then we place the names of various missing and murdered Indigenous women in gold letters on the spines of the books. So the books basically represent that this person has a story. Some of the books do not have names on them. They're left blank, and those are to represent the women and children who have yet to be found.
One day,
At the end of a ceremony this morning, Smoke was presented with a book which has a Bear Clan cover and raspberries to represent the raspberry moon.
this is going to have a very special place in my house because I'll be showing it to people and I will also be reading it. But it really means a lot to me that, I said I'll never let the world forget what happened to Debbie, and now there she is.
This collection of books will be placed in 8 different libraries around the city until the end of February. It will then be moved to a national installation. Brent Lale, CTV News.
Okay, there is Mary Lou's little segment, and again, it's a great thing to help remind people of this history because this history is, as I said, it's not really history because it's still happening, and so there are a couple places where this is more prevalent than others. Here in Canada, we have something that's called the Highway of Tears, which is Highway 16 in British Columbia. Comes from Port George up to I think it's 170-mile highway. This segment of highway where women have gone missing for decades. And so also in Winnipeg, which is considered kind of ground zero for missing and murdered Indigenous women. So Winnipeg's in the province of Manitoba. So these two provinces probably have some of the highest Indigenous populations in Canada and therefore have some of the highest rates of missing and murdered women, girls, and two-spirits in those areas. Now, that's not to say that we don't have them in the other provinces. It's just those two provinces seem to be um, the epicenters. In the U.S., I believe Montana is one of the really high rate of murders, and maybe South Dakota because of the high number of reservations that are in the area. Now, there was a something done here for missing and murdered Indigenous women, but the one thing that brought this up to my attention, or really refocused me at this, is that there's a story now that's been done about a woman called Sonia Sewing. Sonia Sewing is from London, where I live. She is well, not actually from London. She's from a nearby reservation, but she lived in London, and so her murder happened something like 30 years ago now. We actually did a spiritual ceremony out where her remains are found to help her travel into the next world. The U.S. now today has confirmed through attorneys, family members, documents that ICE has detained for weeks. A woman in her 50s has lived in the U.S. for more than 30 years and is married to a U.S. citizen. Yes, I think I heard that. A woman in her 30s with proof of valid. She had a green card or something, if that's the person I'm thinking of. Or was that a guy? Um, Speaking of that, there was a Cree composer named what's he just went down to New York City to conduct a choir from London, Ontario that were supposed to all be performing at Carnegie Hall. And he was supposed to perform at Carnegie Hall. He was detained, I guess, saying that he didn't have the proper documentation. Now they only kept him for 4 hours, but they they deported him back to Canada, so he wasn't able to actually do his conducting that he was supposed to do in Carnegie Hall. That's nuts. Um, so I have a couple of his songs in my song list on my Dark Native channel, and he actually does a really cool rendition of an Iron Maiden song called "Run to the Hills." And if you're ever interested in hearing an indigenous perspective on that song, you got to check that out. So anyway, Sonia was murdered about 30 odd years ago, and her body was dumped just north of London. And her they did an investigation again, which apparently was considered not to be very thorough, and so now they've created this episode on Fifth Estate did an episode on this called "Who Murdered Sonia Sewing," because the police eventually just stopped investigating, much like they did with Mary Lou's sister Debbie. They just stopped investigating her murder because she was Indigenous, and they felt that they had apparently exhausted all their leads. Um, and so I wanted to show this because this was just posted a few days ago, this new segment from the Fifth Estate. So we wanted to share this. So I'm going to actually move this to full screen so that you can see it without my old mug on the screen here. And get a clear view of this documentary.
This story contains coarse language and graphic sexual assault details. Viewer discretion is advised.
On this edition of The Fifth Estate.
I strung her right out. I mean strung her out.
For 3 decades, Sonia Sywink's death has remained unsolved.
You try to make sense of something and you can't make sense of it.
Her case might have gone cold, but her sister Maggie has refused to give up.
I've come to the place in my life where we're going to do everything. We're going to push. We're just going to push beyond the limits at this point.
With the help of a retired police officer, Maggie has taken to the streets to investigate for herself.
I want to know what she knows.
Okay, let's do it.
Tonight, a sister's journey to find the truth.
I just want to know the truth. What fucking happened to her?
I'm Connie Walker. This is The Fifth Estate.
I do not believe my sister would go to a place like that willingly. The location where she was found from the roadway is quite a ways inwards. So I believe that she was taken there, likely after she was dead, and put there, and it was made to look like she was assaulted there. But I don't believe that. I believe she was killed somewhere else and brought there.
How Sonia Sywink ended up here has remained a mystery for 3 decades and haunted her older sister Maggie.
You know, she was small, very petite. She wasn't really tough. She wasn't really made tough.
Maggie comes back to this site every year. That her sister's body was found in this small park 40 kilometers outside of London, Ontario, is one of the few things she knows for certain about Sonia's murder.
And do you think it was possible to drive in somehow?
No, not at all. So there's no way somebody could get a vehicle back here. Yeah, so it's a long ways to bring somebody. Like, she was brought here by someone or some people.
So many questions.
So many questions, so many things to want to settle in your mind. You know, it's, I think, what everybody deserves to have, is to have answers, to have the truth.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
I don't know, as it gets closer to August 30th, I get a little bit more just nostalgic.
This is a busy week for Maggie. She's come to London, Ontario to prep for the annual ceremony she holds for Sonia. But this year, she has another mission. She wants to try to solve her sister's murder.
Especially in an old case like this, right? I think police always said, well, there's no new tips and, you know, we really can't do anything. So they don't have time because they're busy doing other cases, which there are lots of other cases. Then okay, I have to do something then. I have to actively go out and find a way to find tips.
Maggie has been an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls for years.
I have a sign for the
No, I
table.
think that's fine.
Okay. It's never enough for me, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And like many families, she has had to push to get more resources on her sister's case.
Perfect.
Sonia's homicide is being investigated by the Ontario Provincial Police. Maggie says the OPP told her they didn't have any new leads. That's when she decided to go out and get her own. Since 2019, she's hit the streets of East London, where her sister lived.
She was murdered. She was murdered, yeah. And her body was found. The last place she was seen was across the street there.
Yeah.
And there's a $75,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person who killed her.
Oh.
So there's $75,000.
In the 1990s, East London was a hotbed of drugs and crime, with police crackdowns happening regularly. The gritty life that surrounded Sonia there was a far cry from the beauty of her home on the Whitefish River First Nation. The Siwink sisters grew up in a big Anishinaabe family on Manitoulin Island.
So yeah, we would go out onto the lake. We built our own little raft, and we'd all be, you know, just pushing ourselves along in this raft, and we'd be just in the weeds and looking at the different fish, and just, I mean, it was just a family. It was just fun.
The second youngest of 13 children, Sonia dreamed of becoming a flight attendant and traveling the world.
She was a real girly girl. Like, she loved to wear nail polish and makeup, and I mean, she was always extremely presentable. She loved to sing. She was a great singer.
As young adults, the sisters went their separate ways, Maggie ending up in Toronto and Sonia in London, Ontario. The last time Maggie saw her sister was a month before her death. Sonia attended a family reunion back home on Manitoulin Island.
She made a really great spaghetti dinner for everybody. I hadn't seen her in months, so I was a little concerned that she was very thin. And, but she seemed otherwise very normal. So it wasn't until after she had left the reunion, and I had found a couple of items in there that indicated that she was back to using.
Sonia had struggled for years with a drug and alcohol addiction, both readily available just outside her home in East London.
Do you remember the last time you saw Sonia?
Yes, I do. We're living at, I think it's 772 Dundas Street.
Richard Orford was Sonia's friend and roommate. They met as regulars at a local bar in East London.
We walked out the front door onto the street. There was a few of us out there. And she was getting in a red car with a dark guy with lots of jewelry who I'd never seen before. And she was out there waiting for her. And she got in it, so it was somebody that she knew or had met through somebody else. And for some reason that still bothers me, that car with the white seats. It was the last time I seen her. I was probably one of the last people to see her alive.
Orford didn't know the man waiting for Sonia. They lived together for only a few months, and there were parts of her life that Sonia kept private.
She was a call girl, and she had her own clients. She never said this to customer or client or whatever. She never let any of her friends or anything in her personal life and business life be together.
Was she ever worried for her safety doing
Not that
work?
I'm aware of, never. That in that profession, there always is a chance. She wouldn't have been one to crawl in a vehicle with somebody if she thought of anything danger, or even getting stranded.
The OPP says Sonia was last seen on Thursday, August 25th, 1994. A few days later, her sister Maggie woke up with an uneasy feeling and headed to London.
It was the next day that my sister had come back from her work, and she came to the house and she said, I heard something on the news today. And she said, yeah, a woman's body had been found at the Southwold Earthworks. And she was partially clothed. And I thought, is that Sonia? And then she said, no, it can't be her. And then as soon as she said that, I knew it was her. So
And then later that evening, police had gone to see my dad and delivered the news, and then my brother called everybody that night. We saw him pretty hard.
Southwold Earthworks is an historic First Nations settlement just outside a tiny hamlet in rural Ontario. On the following Tuesday afternoon, a man foraging for wild mushrooms in the park stumbled upon Sonia's lifeless body. She was in a ditch, partially clothed with bruises on her body.
When I was working, I was tenacious and I was like a dog with a bone.
Chris Gayson was one of the first officers on the scene after Sonia was found. It was his first homicide investigation, and it took him out of his small rural detachment and into the streets of East London.
You know, I feel like we left no stone unturned, but we were never, in my opinion, close back then.
Maggie remembers at Sonia's funeral back home, a stranger showed up, a man from London who asked to speak to her dad. He said he was Sonia's boyfriend.
And had you ever met him before?
No, I didn't know anything about him.
The man revealed a shocking secret that only deepened the family's pain. Sonia was pregnant when she was killed. When we come back, Maggie talks to the father of Sonia's unborn baby.
The OPP came to me and said at least 6 out of 10 people we've interviewed on the street have said you were the killer.
After Sonia's funeral, Maggie felt compelled to go back to London to see if she could find some answers for herself.
Everywhere you look, everyone you see, you wonder if that's them, if that's a killer. Is that the one who took my sister's life?
One of the first people she talked to was Larry Fink, the stranger who showed up at Sonia's funeral. DNA would confirm he was the father of Sonia's unborn child.
Who was Fink? Like, do you know him?
Well, I met him. First time I met him was at my sister's funeral. Didn't even know he existed.
What was your impression of him?
Like somebody I really didn't trust.
In 1994, Sonia frequented an after-hours bar that Fink ran in a garage. We found Fink had multiple run-ins with police that same year. A few months before Sonia was killed, Fink was charged with assaulting a woman in London. 2 people we spoke to who didn't want to come on camera say they pointed police to Fink. Maggie remembers asking Fink about Sonia's life in London before her death.
Started asking him, it's like, you know, what happened and any details he might have known. They weren't living together. Wasn't that kind of relationship? Like he had a separate, maybe he had a separate life from her. You know, I don't know all of the details around that. But I wanted to know everything he knew, which he seemed to know very little.
How big of a focus was Larry Fink in those early days in your investigation?
I mean, he was somebody that we spoke to, like several other people. You know, I mean, as far as interviewing and taking DNA, you know, that was, yeah. I mean, that's all I can really talk about.
Years later, Fink was interrogated again by police after 2 child welfare disputes turned violent.
Where the evidence is there, buddy. Well, it's fine. Prove it. There's only 2 people. Go to the door and prove it.
Following Sonia's death, Fink's life seemed to spiral out of control and onto a collision course with the justice system.
I'm not even interested in talking to you. I didn't think it's all over. It's all over. I knew you. Turn the TV off. No, the tape is still on. Have a seat. I don't want to. I'm tired. I'm going to lay down and go to bed. Go just have a seat.
In 1995, Fink fathered a child and fought for custody. When he was unsuccessful, he abducted the child and was arrested in Nova Scotia. Fink was sentenced to 2 years in jail.
I know how far I can go and how far I can't go.
In 2004, Fink had another child and another run-in with child welfare authorities. When police attempted to seize his baby, Fink barricaded his family in his mother's home in Halifax. When a shot was fired from the house, police evacuated the street.
I want to make a request that we move the staging area down to the next intersection.
The standoff lasted 3 days and ended when his elderly mother died of natural causes inside the home. With a shotgun slung over his shoulder, Fink carried out his mother's body on a stretcher. Following the standoff, Fink was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison.
I can't understand why the press doesn't print the cost to the public.
Maggie lost track of Fink, but always had lingering questions about his involvement in Sonia's life. Then one day, she got a message from him on Facebook. "Hi, Maggie. I'm the father of Sonia's baby, and I would like to speak with you," he wrote. "I know more about what happened than any other on earth."
Hey, Larry.
Maggie got him on the phone. He was living in the Philippines. She recorded the call.
First of all, I'm dying of cancer, Maggie. I'm in God's hands.
We've been told that Fink has since died, but in 2020, he told Maggie on the phone that after Sonia was killed, many people looked to him for answers about her death.
The OPP came to me and said, at least 6 out of 10 people we've interviewed on the street have said you were the killer. We want you to take a polygraph. So I said, you need to tell me that I killed my own baby.
When was the last time you saw Sonia that weekend?
I didn't.
You didn't see her? You hadn't seen her?
The last time I saw her, I was having supper at the TNC. I ate there every night.
Fink denied seeing Sonia the weekend she was killed, but he did admit to Maggie that he had previously put Sonia in dangerous situations.
What happens? I went up and saw McNeil, and I said, I want to beat all of that fucking dirty crap. I don't want the clean stuff, clean cocaine. I want that dirty fucking shit. You know, that's strange.
Right.
So I got Sonia upstairs, and I said, get it into you, Sonia. You haven't had enough. And I smoked it with her. Right, I'm going to have some, right? Come on, let's do it. So I strung her right out. I strung her out, you know? And I got to the problems, right?
Then he said Sonia told him about a dark secret from her past.
When she was 12 years old, she was gang raped. I don't know what you know about it, if you even know anything.
Maggie did know her sister's secret. They were only a year apart in age and always very close.
She was sexually assaulted in our community.
Did she confide in you when it happened?
She did. She did. We never talked about it again, and I didn't know how to help her. I was a kid, you know? I was sworn to secrecy.
Maggie believes the assault changed the trajectory of her sister's life, and it's haunted Maggie ever since.
I mean, I was the only one that knew. So, you know, it was one of those secrets that you kept knowing but never knowing as a kid what that would end up doing. But the secret of like never telling anybody else, of never speaking of this again, was probably the most painful part of it, you know? And I never ever thought to bring it up with her again, to say, how are you doing, or do you want some help? I never really thought about that. I mean, it was evident with her behavior, it was evident with her lifestyle that, you know, she was in crisis. She needed help, but I was oblivious to that.
I'm ashamed of that. I feel like I've failed her.
When we come back, Maggie, frustrated with police, takes the investigation into her own hands.
Did you drive Sonia anywhere that night?
I went a few places with your sister.
My question's always been is how did they get her down here?
Maggie's husband, Tom, has been helping her to try to find out what happened to her sister.
But I mean, even dragging somebody for 10 minutes.
They were joined by former detective Chris Gayson after he retired from the OPP.
What were your expectations initially when...
To solve it. 100%. Yes. Yeah, 100%. To solve it, to figure it out. It was unfinished business. I mean, the plan was, before COVID, to talk to some of Sonia's acquaintances. I mean, I just knew 2 key people that we had to go talk to.
One of them was a woman who approached Maggie with a tip in 2019. Gayson and Maggie recorded their interview with her.
Yes. And Denise, you'll agree to be taped?
Yes, okay. I agree to be taped.
Okay. Yes. Awesome.
Denise Beeswax is a friend of the Cywink family from the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, south of London.
Well, I knew a lot of the people that was involved.
In 1994, Beeswax knew the scene in East London. She told Maggie what she had heard, that Sonia had gone to a party at a house not far from where her body was found.
I just heard that she was picked up at the TNC and driven to the party.
That's the town and country?
Yeah. She was picked up there, and she was driven to the party. And I was told that a piece of crack went missing, like a $20 rock. And she got blamed for it, and she got smacked, and she fell. And she died.
And did you ever think about telling the authorities what you'd heard?
I went right to the police station in Strathroy, and I told them what I knew.
When was this?
It wasn't long after. It was kind of after I had pieced it together, like who was involved and what had happened. I don't know, they just kind of brushed me off or whatever and said that it kind of muddies the water or something like that. And
Muddies the water? What do you think they meant by that?
I don't know.
Before she came forward, Gayson had never heard of Denise Beeswax or her story of Sonia being killed because of a drug dispute. But just a few months later, another woman reached out to Maggie with a similar story. The woman told Maggie she knew Sonia and had information about her death. Maggie asks, "Please answer a question that I could never figure out. What do you want to know? Why did they take Sonia to Iona Station? To the earthworks? I'm not sure. The police took me there also. Someone told the police she was with me that day."
She wanted to talk to me. So she asked me for my phone number. She gave me her phone number. Anyways, we ended up talking for quite a while.
Maggie had several phone calls with the woman, but she always said she didn't feel safe telling her everything she knew on the phone. Today, Maggie has tracked her down and wants to talk to her in person.
She gave me an address on Tecumseh Street, and I have a phone number. So that's a deal. We're going.
When Maggie told Gayson about the woman, he remembered her. She had been a person of interest in his investigation 30 years ago.
I'm not sure when the OPP have last talked to her. I mean, obviously, we talked to her quite a bit. You know, during that first 6 months, the first year. Even actually 4 years later, we talked to her again. But whether they've done any follow-up, They're not going to tell us, but I guess for our sake, for your sake, you want to know.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity. We're right here. I think she'll come along. I really do.
We were there when Maggie picked up the woman and drove her to a local park in London. Maggie recorded the conversation.
And then the cop said, "You killed her." I was the #1 suspect. They took my blood, they took my DNA. They said I was the #1 suspect.
For her safety, we are not identifying the woman, and her voice has been replaced by an actor. She denied hurting Sonia, but says she was with her that night at a party and gave her drugs.
What party did she go to that night she went missing? Where did she go to? She went somewhere.
She went to the clubhouse.
Clubhouse?
Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah. That's where everything went down, eh? Could say it. It's all right.
There were a number of criminal organizations operating in London at that time, and there's been speculation about whether any of them were involved in Sonia's death.
They were calling for escorts. Is that right?
Right.
Yes?
Yeah. And they passed them on.
They passed them on.
They passed them on and made them do things.
Right.
And when they don't want to do things, they're beaten. It wasn't about money. It was about what she wouldn't do.
Oh, it was about what she wouldn't do. You know what? Look at me. Look at me. It's 30 years. All we want to know is the truth. Like, I don't want to hold anyone accountable. I just want peace, you know what I mean? I want some peace in my life. I want to give her peace and her baby. They deserve it. They deserve to be free from this.
I should have said something.
What fucking happened to her?
They beat her.
The woman wouldn't tell Maggie the exact location of the party or the name of the person who beat her sister, but she tells Maggie the name of someone else who she claims was a witness to the assault on Sonia. Maggie wants to continue investigating, but she's getting resistance from those closest to her.
I want to know. And I don't know if the police, and the way they do things and how they do it, would ever get those answers.
We don't feel they could get the answers, but we don't know they can't get the answers. And you're also dealing with a group of individuals that are criminals. And you can't begin to understand a criminal's mind. You can't understand what they're capable of. And we would have a serious conversation unless there was some major backup for Meg to go back in.
You're worried that she
Oh,
could
I'm
be an
definitely
answer.
worried now. At the elevation we're at in this investigation, yes. I don't feel comfortable for my wife.
Do you worry about your safety if you
No,
continue?
she doesn't worry. No. That's why I'm here.
After the break, we uncover documents that reveal new information about Sonia's death.
So here's another thing. The family has never seen the autopsy reports or the toxicology reports, and it's shocking.
More than 30 years has passed since Sonia's death. And although she feels closer than ever to getting answers about her sister's murder, Maggie is standing down. After interviewing the woman who claimed she was at a party with Sonia that night, Maggie gave the recording she made to the OPP and is hoping they will follow up on the new leads.
I think now the OPP has a lot more direct link to my sister's death. And so, I mean, there were individuals mentioned in that recording. And so if they don't follow it up, I'm gonna blow a gasket. You know, I mean, how can you give them everything that, it's like on a golden platter, silver platter, if you will, and them not do anything with it? Like, I would be not honoring my sister's life. And I can't have that.
Maggie has been pushing the OPP for years, trying to keep her sister's case at the forefront. And now she's working with a lawyer to help get answers from police.
As you know, I wrote a letter to Detective Inspector Randy Gaynor of the OPP because he's been overseeing the case.
Jessica Zita agrees with Tom that Maggie shouldn't have to investigate her sister's murder.
Is that like the state of affairs we're operating under? No civilian should feel that they have no options but to investigate the death of their loved one themselves. Because that's actually a very dangerous, precarious position to put oneself in without any proper reinforcement.
According to Gayson, that's the reality for families once a case goes cold.
You know, I've said it before to Meg, I think families have to not be completely reliant on the police and just try to dig up new information themselves.
I mean, it's kind of shocking to hear you say that, Chris, saying family members shouldn't rely only on police for these unsolved cases. When did you start believing that? I mean, you were a police officer for 30 years.
Well, I mean, since I retired, obviously, I've had time to think about things. It's just logical. I mean, it makes sense.
Late last year, Zita met with the detective inspector in charge of Sonia's case. He told her the DNA they collected from the crime scene was contaminated and shared other insights into their initial investigation back in 1994.
I think that there were definitely mistakes. There were mistakes in how things were handled.
Zita said the detective inspector pointed the finger at the original investigators in Sonia's case.
I can't say for certain what went wrong, but it just seems like there were gaps left, or there were things that were not properly followed up on. There were, problems, and just even in basic note-taking. It seems like there was just miscommunication internally that we're still trying to fill in now, like many, many, many years later.
They told her that part of the problem is the original investigation, that there were mistakes made, that there were leads that weren't followed up on, that there was poor note-taking.
As far as that first year, I'm content, I'm at peace, that we did everything possible. I mean, there was ample resources. Could we have all done better at times? Maybe, but I don't know. I think we did a thorough job.
But we discovered there were some things about the original investigation that even Gayson wasn't aware of.
So here's another thing. The family has never seen the autopsy reports or the toxicology reports. It's shocking.
Zita had never seen the report, so she had to rely on what the OPP said in a meeting late last year. Despite the fact they had been investigating for decades, they told her that Sonia's death may not have been the result of homicide.
The autopsy reports, from what I'm told, say that Sonia's death resulted from a mixture of injury, of blunt force trauma, but also the drugs that she had in her system. So that, you can see how that might change things.
How? Can you spell it out?
Well, what was told to me, which is, again, hearsay, but also I have to think that it came from the report itself, was that she was hurt, she was injured, but it was because of her toxicology that she wasn't able to help herself in that situation. And it might have been a situation that another person in a different state might have survived. So that kind of takes the sting out of how murderous this might have been.
After our interview with Zita, we obtained the original coroner's report. It said Sonia was found naked from the waist down, wearing only socks, an open shirt, and a ring. Her body was found in a ditch in a shaded area. She was battered. The autopsy noted over 20 contusions and abrasions on the front and back of her body, as well as her neck and face. The report concluded trauma associated with cocaine intake could have caused Sonia's death. But despite the signs of violence on her body, whether her death was accidental or homicide cannot be determined.
And what was the cause of death in your understanding?
Blunt force trauma. Blunt force trauma.
But this autopsy doesn't say that. It says it's undetermined. That it wasn't blunt force trauma that necessarily resulted in her death.
Yeah. I'm not aware of the wording then of that, of that saying that.
Gayson was confused by the report and upset at the suggestion that Sonia's death wasn't a homicide.
Can I read this for a second?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely read it.
I would think I would have read it at some point, but so the initial findings showed blunt force trauma to the upper body, but he felt not enough to cause her death.
Her death.
According to the autopsy, the undetermined ruling was made a year after Sonia's death, around the same time that the original OPP investigation seemed to wind down. As an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, Maggie has worked with families in a similar situation that she was now in. Despite what they see as clear violence inflicted on their loved ones, their cause of death is ruled undetermined and then ignored.
It's not just a question about Sonia. It's a question about hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of other cases that have been also undetermined through the autopsy reports, because families come forward and they go, oh, it's undetermined, so that means like it's not a murder. I question this whole scenario in terms of how did her body end up there? Why was she positioned in the way she was? Why was she partially clothed? Like, why take all those steps to hide something, and then we find out many other mitigating facts about her death, and we put it all together, and it's a fucking homicide, regardless.
Unbeknownst to Maggie, the chief pathologist of Ontario, Michael Polanin, had come to the same conclusion. In 2016, he was asked to review Sonia's case. He was unable to completely agree with the original report due to the serious injuries found on Sonia. He said because her injuries were most likely due to assault, the manner of death is homicide.
You just think about your loved one being out there in that position. You think about, the detail of the autopsy in terms of description. How does anybody reconcile with somebody they loved being that way? How? I don't know. So I think that is painful.
We wanted to ask the OPP about the coroner's reports and suspect Larry Fink and whether they had followed up on any of Maggie's tips, but they declined our interview request. They said in a statement that Sonia's death is being investigated as a homicide and that her case is active and ongoing. Last August, at the site where her body was found, Maggie held another memorial to honor Sonia.
Love you. Love you. That eagle's flying high just for us.
Investigating an unsolved murder 30 years later is fraught. People are scattered or dead, memory fades, and families are still grappling with their grief.
I want to acknowledge yourselves for taking the time to get here today, to make an effort to be with us, to stand with us. And I think most importantly, through this 30 years of wanting to find the answers to my sister's murder.
Haunted by the past and a promise to her sister, Maggie pushes on, keeping the police engaged, hoping her relentless pursuit will yield some new piece of evidence that will finally, after all this time, provide the answers she is looking for.
I think all I really want and all my family want, we just want the truth. This work is part of healing. We're all healing day by day. And I think we have to walk through our traumatic lives sometimes in order to get to the other side of healing.
Sigoli Swagway, Galakandini Oget, Swagi Slevagi, Niwaki Dolora. So, I was saying to that show, Sonia is from our area. We did share a point in time where we were from the same circles. We traveled in the same circles. So it's actually really eerie to see this documentary come out now when it serves as a reminder, first of all, of my past, my own past, and where, you know, I went through this dark phase. And, you know, and traveled in the same circles as Sonia Seaworth. And so we've held ceremony. We've held ceremony for her at the site where she was found. And as you see, her sister still holds ceremony there from time to time, and is still searching for answers. And those answers may or may not ever come. We don't know. But the fact that she is attempting, she's doing this, and same with Mary Lou Smoke. As I mentioned before that, Mary Lou Smoke is dealing with trying to find the murder of her sister, Debbie, who was killed in Toronto. And one of the things, because Indigenous women are not necessarily considered important enough to put a lot of effort and energy and resources into it as much as they say they do. When Debbie was killed in Toronto, her apartment essentially got ransacked by her landlord. The apartment became contaminated as a place of investigation, and that is really common. And the girl who was whose remains were found in Arizona, or at least parts of her remains being found. It's one of those things that the family is going to have to continue to push and push and push in order to get that case investigated properly, because otherwise they could go for 20 or 30 years, much like Sonia's sister and much like Mary Lou Smoke, who have both been taking it upon themselves to really try to seek answers to the questions of what happened to their family members. So this is not something new, and so This is the reason we have um, missing and murdered Indigenous women being pushed to the forefront of wherever we can put out the conversations, because these discussions still have to continue. And there's organizations like the Native Women's Association of Canada, Native Women's Association of Ontario. Each province has their own Native Women's Association to help create resources for people to be able to learn about and become aware of these situations. So whether we're talking about murdered Indigenous women, girls, two-spirits, um, gender diverse people, they are all part of a marginalized community, and they will continue to be if things aren't changed, if systemic issues aren't changed. You know, we're talking about our youth being put into foster homes or put into group homes, when in reality, what they should be doing is they should be put into our traditional uh, communities and um, taken care of by our own people, so that they can maintain their culture, they can maintain their language, and in doing that, that will help our youth um, live a healthier lifestyle, um, rather than being assimilated into this Eurocentric sentiment that's been going on for the last, 400 or 500 years. Um, but that's something we're continuing to fight for, and I know that now Manitoba is actually starting to see some of the youth and foster situations change. They're building healing centers on the reservations and our settlements for when those situations where children aren't safe at home, and there are situations that can be like that because of the whole, you know, generation after generation of trauma that's been going down, is that these children can be taken into these healing centers where they can be taught by Indigenous elders and teachers and taken care of in a culturally appropriate way, rather than being taken into and put into families of non-Indigenous people where they no longer have access to their language or their culture or their teachings or their clothing, um, or lessons like that, where they can practice their own identity. Because once you're in that system, which is why we call it a systemic issue, is it's hard to get out of it. So I have one last clip, and by the way, I want to say big Yanko J Bear for the resub. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate your ongoing support, truly, and Faustian as well. Thank you so much for your resub as well. And so I have one more clip here to share, and then we'll kind of look for somewhere to go. When I say we need to continue these conversations, part of what we need to do is repeat the names of the people who are victimized. So Sonia Seawink, who is from my town, or Debbie lost Mary Lou's sister, who died in Toronto. Morgan Harris, who was murdered in Winnipeg, and Myra, who was also killed in Winnipeg. We need to try to remember these names and repeat these names so that people will not forget, and will transfer those conversations to those around them, and let those people learn about the issues that are going on with missing and murdered Indigenous women, with the intergenerational trauma that's happening from the residential schools. So this next little clip here is shorter, It's only about 29 minutes, and it's called Say Her Name. And so this is going to cover, like I said, in Canada, we have the Highway of Tears, which is this 300 odd mile highway in British Columbia from Port George, and I think it's Point George. I can't remember the other one, the other end of it. But anyway, we have the Highway of Tears. We have Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is another epicenter for missing and murdered Indigenous women. And we're starting to see a few here in Ontario. But in the U.S., we have issues in Montana as a big area, as well as South Dakota. And in the woman who is the teenager, 14-year-old teenager whose remains were found in Arizona, hopefully is not a sign that this is expanding even to more states than it's already in. But let me play this, and this is going to be focusing on a small community in Montana where there's a high percentage of missing and murdered Indigenous women there. So let's get this. Let's just get this going.
In the late 1960s and early 1970s, the national media in the U.S. was engrossed by a series of murders in Northern California, with San Francisco central to the killing spree. Dubbed the Zodiac Killer, law enforcement confirmed that the serial killer murdered 5 victims, though the killer claimed it was more in letters to the press. At the time, San Francisco alone had a population of approximately 716,000. I'm here in Hardin, Montana, the county seat of Bighorn County. Hardin has a population of approximately 3,500. Bighorn County has some 27 documented missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls cases, and approximately 20 missing and murdered Indigenous men and boys cases. Like the Zodiac Killer, most of the perpetrators of these crimes are yet to be apprehended and brought to justice. In Hardin, at least half of the MMIWG cases are unsolved. 86% of missing and murdered Indigenous people cases in Montana remain unsolved. But unlike the Zodiac Killer, the nation's media isn't focused here, though there are 240 plus more victims and likely many more due to underreporting. Bighorn County has the highest per capita rates of MMIWG cases in the U.S. I'm here to find out why this county, with fewer than 14,000 residents, and this small reservation border town Hardin, has been called the epicenter of the MMIWG tragedy.
Selena wasn't there.
We're getting stonewalled every which way we turn.
That's where they had found her body.
The racism in the Montana legislature is blatant, and it can get ugly.
Something could have happened on reservation and then they're transported off. The jurisdiction question remains confusing, even in those kinds of situations.
It's like they didn't even want to help me.
They don't do anything because we're Native American.
They couldn't give us an answer for anything.
They knew right away it was her, and they didn't tell us.
Case closed, natural causes.
I know she was placed here, and there's foul play.
Sarah Stopp's Pretty Places was a young Northern Cheyenne and Crow woman who was intimately familiar with both reservations and Bighorn County. In the summer of 2019, Sarah's family expected her to return home from Missoula, Montana, to attend the Northern Cheyenne 4th of July powwow.
She loved Missoula, Montana, and she loved Hellgate High School there, so she had hoped to go back and then go on to media arts, which the theater there at the University of Montana is what we had discussed, and I was hoping that she could get her legs there in university before she headed to maybe New York or California. She was just like an excellent athlete, and that kind of runs in her family from her grandpa Joseph Bulltail to her mom, and she just really excelled in that. A lot of coaches were watching her.
Sarah never got on the bus in Missoula. Instead, she was transported by a parolee to an isolated location in Pryor on the Crow Reservation. There, Kaysera found herself at the nexus of methamphetamine distribution and human trafficking that is central to the MMIWG crisis. Kaysera was held against her will, but unlike many young women in that situation, she managed to escape. During that time, it is said that Kaysera learned information about another Bighorn County murdered and missing Indigenous victim. 2 weeks after her 18th birthday, Kaysera's body lay exposed to the August heat in a yard adjacent to one of the busiest roads in Hardin. Is the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office and County Attorney still claiming that her body had been in that yard for multiple days before it was found?
They still claim that her body laid in the spot that it was found. And that it was there for several days, at least 5 days. But the spot that she was found is a very high traffic area, very visual area. Okay, so this is the yard where they found Kaysera's body here. And her body was right here with her head facing, this would be east, and her legs facing west. And she was laying prone on her belly with her arms under her. I know she was placed here, and there's foul play because she didn't just die from a drug overdose or a seizure or anything. The person that found her, he was jogging and he saw her body right away. There's absolutely no way that her body could have been laying there, such a visible place for that long, without being discovered. When we spoke with the person that found the body, they called for help. And when they came, the officer did not secure the scene. People were walking in and out of there, and he himself told them, shouldn't you secure this area? Shouldn't you secure the scene, you know? So that whole scene was compromised. Kids were tweeting that the body that was found was the body of that Stops girl, that 17-year-old. The first officer absolutely knew that that was Kaysera. He is the same officer that she spoke to, the same officer that made comments about, oh, she's just probably out partying, you know, she'll come back.
Can you tell us why the first officer had to recuse himself?
This officer is involved in a brutality beating of Kaysera's brother just a week before.
So you believe that Kaysera filming this brutality from an officer beating her brother, who was in a wheelchair at Crow Fair, contributed to the lack of responsiveness to her case?
I believe that.
Kaysera's family has only been granted one meeting with each of the Bighorn County Sheriff, the Undersheriff who has her case file, and County Attorney Jay Harris. Even their requests for documentation from Harris's MMIP task force have been ignored. Harris declined an interview with me, but I thought he might at least be willing to share some of the task force's findings. Yes, ma'am. So the county attorney, Jay Harris, said that he wouldn't do an interview on camera, but that he would provide background information. Okay. So do you have any documentation or findings of the MMIW task force that he put together after Kaysera's murder?
I'm sure we do, somewhere in the office.
Okay. Could I wait to get those, or?
Can I have you have a seat over there and I'll see what I can find?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
County Attorney Jay Harris, who was highly defensive. He really didn't have any answers for us. A lot of the questions that I asked the sheriff, I asked him, and he had no idea of any of it.
Despite verbal and written commitments from County Attorney Jay Harris, I'm still waiting for the documents. Is it true that County Attorney Jay Harris objected to you asserting that Kaysera was the victim of murder?
Yeah, he got really upset. When I was speaking with him, I kept using the word murder, so he got upset. He was like, why do you keep saying murder? Why do you keep saying she was murdered? You know, he got really forceful with it. And it really kind of shocked me because I was thinking, why so much emotion here? Why this reaction, you know?
Why so much emotion here? It's a good question, but like so many related to Bighorn County murdered and missing Indigenous tragedies, it remains unanswered. The family and friends of Selena Not Afraid are also among those waiting for answers. The 16-year-old Crow girl went missing at this rest stop on I-90 during the afternoon of New Year's Day 2020. Selena, a minor, was traveling with 5 adults, 2 men and 3 women, having attended a New Year's Eve party in Billings. The driver of the vehicle claimed the group pulled into this rest stop due to car trouble. During the time it took to restart it, Selena exited the vehicle with one of the women. The driver and 3 others left them. The woman with Selena was picked up 15 minutes later. She claims Selena had wandered off alone. What we know is that 5 adults abandoned a minor in the dead of a Montana winter. On January 20th, Selena's body was found in close proximity to the rest stop. Yesterday, I was at the site where Selena Not Afraid's body was found. I thought there were some things about the case that didn't add up before I got there, and now those discrepancies are even greater. And I understand that Selena was your granddaughter's best friend. Could you speak about your impressions and concerns about the case?
Selena should be graduating this year. And my granddaughter was in touch with Selena the entire time, like New Year's Eve. She came into my room and she said, Grandma, Selena is missing. And I said, oh, she'll show up. No, Grandma, she's missing.
Which agency coordinated the search efforts?
I want to say Bighorn County did. Yeah, if I can remember right, I believe Bighorn County did. There was a lot of volunteers, and then the search and rescue, we came in. It was different for us because we were coming in as an invite. It's not our jurisdiction, so everything we did, we had to come with permission every day. Anywhere we went on the lands, we asked for permission.
What did you wish you had that you didn't, that would have aided with the search?
I'm not sure if I ever thought about wishing for anything other than to find her, to hear that she was okay, that she was with family. That's what the focus is on.
It seems impossible that searchers wouldn't have found Selena's body as soon as they began, given how close she was found near the rest stop fence line. Searchers were going shoulder to shoulder, and there's no doubt that they scoured that area. How could her body have possibly been found after the break due to weather when the search was resumed?
So many nights I came, I wonder that Selena wasn't there. Somebody brought her back there. That is the only take I have on it, that she wasn't there. Somebody took her back there. Somebody took her body back there. And that is so clear to me, because I know from standing there where we were and just looking out to where her body was found, those areas were combed for days. They were combed, but she wasn't there. I, in my heart, think that someone hurt Selena and then put her back out there.
A couple of hours after Selena's body was found, Bighorn County Sheriff Lawrence Bighair issued a press release declaring, quote, "Foul play is not suspected." Before even a preliminary autopsy, Selena was categorized as another victim of hypothermia. County Attorney Harris, who is reportedly at odds with Bighair, issued a statement criticizing the premature declaration. Big Hair's career has not been without controversy. Under Sheriff Eric Winburn told Montana Public Radio that there was no evidence that Selena's body had been moved, claiming that there were no tire tracks or footprints deep enough to indicate her body had been carried there. We have no evidence that there was foul play, Winburn said, but there is clearly evidence of criminal negligence.
When you're in a border community, particularly Bighorn County, which includes part of the Crow Reservation, includes part of the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, and then when we're talking about Hardin in particular, that creates confusion in itself. So there's this assumption in Bighorn County that if someone, particularly an individual that was missing, that they're then found, and they're found off reservation in Bighorn County, that there would be this clarity that it's state jurisdiction. That's not always the case, where something could have happened on reservation and then they're transported off. And so the jurisdiction question remains confusing even in those kinds of situations. We've seen so many times that out of Bighorn County there are decisions made about what the cause of death is, so the case is closed. And if everyone has this assumption that Bighorn County has jurisdiction, then no one else really has the ability to step in. The FBI, BIA, tribal law enforcement could be involved if the governments agree to work together, where there is some sort of common goals and communication with each other and protocols developed. But with that lack of coordination, we see cases that start to fall through the cracks, families that start to feel like they're being ignored. And ultimately the feeling that they get is that the life of their family member didn't have value. When there is no active effort to figure out what happened, and there's just this determination, case closed, natural causes.
Case closed, natural causes describes the experience of Paula Castro and Nathan Stopps. The FBI, BIA, and the U.S. Attorney's Office concluded that their daughter, 14-year-old Henny Scott, died of hypothermia. Henny was last seen alive on December 8, 2018, at a home on Muddy Creek near Lame Deer. The official record states that 5 of her peers were with her. Her parents have reason to believe that several other people were present. Henny's body was found within 200 yards of the house. The forensic examiner didn't record any significant trauma. Photos of Henny's body suggest otherwise. Can you tell me how long Henny was missing before law enforcement decided to do any type of search?
It was like they finally got involved maybe about the second week she was missing. She was missing a total of 28 days.
So you had to reach out to them in order to try to get answers, and they never gave you answers?
No. I mean, everything we would ask, they couldn't answer. They couldn't give us an answer for anything. Their investigation didn't take more than 2 months. They just opened, and before we knew it, it was closed. Closed case that she passed from hypothermia, accidental. But it just seemed kind of off to me, like suspicious, like that they were trying to cover up what happened to Henny. I think that she did get beat because when we brought her home from the funeral home, it looked like she had a broken nose. It looked like she had some bruises on her knees and like a cigarette burn on her shin, and she had bruises and contusions and bumps on her head, and noticed some of her hair was missing. The person that did her autopsy couldn't tell me how all that came about.
Well, all the concerns that you raised to him, what did he tell you exactly about the only reasoning was that hypothermia caused everything?
Yeah.
Caused the bruising, and that was basically all they kept telling you.
Mm-hmm. They kept telling me that maybe she's with a friend, maybe she's got a new boyfriend, did you try checking there? It's like they didn't even want to help me.
If this were to be a white girl, that she would be found immediately, that something would be done. Mm-hmm. And it's just unexcusable that they don't do anything, because We're Native American, we're Indigenous women and girls. And we're not lesser than. And we're not gonna continue to be treated like we are, because we're all human beings. And that was your daughter.
I won't get to see her graduate. I won't get to see her get married. I won't get to see her have kids. They took that away from me.
Hearing MMIWG statistics is one thing. Hearing heartbreak from family members reliving trauma is something else. We must say their names. Representative Ray Peppers carried Hannah's act through the Montana State Legislature so that those stats could become lifelines. She shared a story that there is no words for, only silence.
I had a law enforcement officer tell me this story. He had a friend in the Bakken. This officer received a call regarding 3 little boys who had gone fishing down by the river. They reported that they heard crying in the bushes, went to investigate, found a huge box with a tarp over it, pulled it up. It turned out to be a cage with 5 little girls in there. 2 were Caucasian, 2 were Indigenous, 1 was Hispanic. These little boys had the foresight to say, we're not going to go all together. We are going to split up and see if we can make sure we find someone who can help. All 3 of them made it out, reported it. This particular law enforcement officer showed up and to find these girls and rescued them. But that situation is not unique to Indian country. It goes clear back to colonialism. And you can read some of Columbus's journals talking about there's a real need for 10-year-old girls.
At Standing Rock, descendants of some Lakota who fought here are today bearing the brunt of the Bakken shell boom. I cherish the land, said Crazy Horse. We are the land. The epicenter of the MMIWG tragedy, Bighorn County, is also surrounded by extractive industry. What is happening to the land is happening to us. We are being raped, killed, trafficked, strip mined. The theft of the sacred Black Hills for gold mining brought the 7th Cavalry here. Custer died on this hill as a mortar to the military-industrial complex. We are dying every day as its victims. Highway 212 parallels the route Custer took to the Little Bighorn on the trail of the Lakota and Cheyenne families. He brought an army to attack them in their homes. Crazy Horse, we hear what you say. Today, Cheyenne women and children are still being hunted on that route. Here on the Cheyenne Nation, there is an incredible amount of semi-truck traffic that goes through the heart of the reservation on Highway 212. That must create an intense amount of vulnerabilities for Cheyenne women and girls in the community. What do you want to do to reduce that threat?
I would like to educate. I think education of our daughters and our nieces, all of our girls, our sons, they are victims as well. You know, recently our casino stopped letting semis park there. Park overnight parking or anything, or even just to come into the casino, they have stopped letting them go there because there was some illegal stuff happening there. I know that those semis stop along the road. I know that anybody who's walking on those roads, as soon as they get on 212, there could either become a statistic of either death, a kidnapping, a rape, anytime any human being gets on that road on 212.
Behind me is Interstate 90. Tribal leaders in Montana have referred to Interstate 90 as the second highway of tears. I'm here at Love's Truck Stop in Hardin, Montana, the epicenter of the MMIWG tragedy, where there is not one missing persons poster to be found on the premises. From the time that I've been here, it's very clear that the families of these victims are the people who are initiating and leading these investigations. You would think that it would be law enforcement to lead these investigations, but that's not the case. It doesn't matter if it's federal, local, or state, it's always the same stories. And there's no sense of urgency. There's a lack of interest with these cases. And it's a common theme in every single case that law enforcement does not want to do their jobs, and that these families have to do their jobs for them, on top of grieving and trying to gain some closure for what has happened to their daughters. After multiple fruitless calls and emails seeking the perspective of the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office, I made one final attempt and decided to try and initiate a conversation on MMIWG at the most basic entry point by asking if they had any past or present missing persons posters. Hi, how are you? Good. So I was just wondering if anyone had a poster or a missing persons flyer for Sarah Stops Pretty Places or Hub Williamson.
We'll look into it and see. Okay.
But you don't currently have one, correct?
I don't know.
Okay, so you don't know if you have a poster or flyer, missing persons poster or flyer.
Correct. I will look into it.
Okay. Is there someone here, I'm sorry, what is your title?
Captain.
Okay. Is there someone here that would have any information about being contacted through email to give comment about those cases specifically?
Like to you or?
Yeah, just someone reaching out, asking for comment. The sheriff's office as a whole giving a comment about those cases and other cases specifically including Indigenous women and girls that have been missing.
I'd get with my detective.
Okay.
And see.
And who's that?
Ty.
Okay, last name?
Cruikshank.
Okay.
All right. See what he, because he's working those cases.
Okay.
So,
but he's not here?
No.
Okay.
Today he's not.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, you bet.
Do you think the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office is involved in a cover-up?
Well, I think there's several things that point to that. They didn't report finding Sarah's body to the media. They absolutely 100% knew that that was Sarah. The officer had to recuse himself. He said he couldn't show the body, but why not look at the clothing? We really feel that there is information on her phone. He said not even the FBI can get into that phone. But the Department of Justice said if they had sent the phone to them, that they can get into it. That there isn't any phone or device that they can't get into or the FBI can't get into.
When that local government asks for federal help, the feds can come in and help with the investigation. That could be happening in Bighorn, and we're not seeing that at this point, and I'm not quite sure what the reason for that is. There's a lot of things that we can speculate to.
After numerous attempts and contacts, the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office declined to comment or participate in this feature.
Yeah. So, like I said, I am going to post this VOD up as soon as we rate out, so that if any of you missed any of it, you can watch it again, or if you could share it with anyone who might be interested in watching. So what we went over today was a 14-year-old Indigenous girl who ran away from a group home, and in January, and parts of her remains were found in mid-February, and that family, her family, is now going through trying to push for investigation to see what happened to her, because we do. I do when I remember, Fastian. The issue for me is my attention span and my memory are great, but they're short. So, so if I can remember, I will. That's just a thing I have to kind of consciously remind myself of. So yeah, so we went over this 14-year-old who was just recently found in February. At least parts of her were found. We also went over Mary Lou Smoke, the story of her sister Debbie, who was murdered in Toronto back in I think it was 1995, and whose murder was never resolved, and there were so many mistakes that went along during that investigation. For those of you who've been here for a while, you'll know who Mary Lou Smoke is. She's one of the elders who comes to my channel to talk about ceremony and traditions and give teachings and things like that. It was Dan and Mary Lou. Unfortunately, Dan passed down to the spirit world back in November. So hopefully Mary Lou's she's taken some time to really focus on family and connection, but hopefully she'll be able to come back and share with us again still. I know that she's also looking at creating some music. She wants to record an album. Mary Lou used to sing back in the early 70s, and she's getting I think she's getting back into that. We also just before this feature, we shared a feature for a woman who was murdered, and her remains were found just north of London, where I live. And Sonia Sywink is a person who traveled in some of the same parts of the neighborhood that I traveled back in the day. And, it takes, I think, a lot of commitment, a lot of desire, and a lot of willpower to pull yourself out of that world. And because you can smell it, you can see it, you can be part of it, and to try to isolate yourself from it really it's a battle. And so when I got out of this kind of our East End, which is kind of our of London, was part of our underworld, and the drugs and prostitution and everything that went around back in those days was really stuck in one specific neighborhood, which is what they were showing on that documentary. So you have to really pull yourself away from it. You can't go back. Otherwise, it's such an easy, slippery slope to slide down if your temptation and willpower aren't there to help you. I very rarely ever go to that neighborhood anymore. and because I know that I have an addictive personality and can easily slide back into that world if I were tempted and went there too often. So we just don't do it. And unfortunately for Sonia, she never had the opportunity to kind of get out, and to her detriment, it ended up getting her killed. And so hopefully at some point, um, who knows, maybe the murderer will be found. Maybe something will pop, and you can never give up hope in those situations. So I'm going to look for someone to raid. I'm going to play a song. Now, the other thing we were talking about earlier was the intergenerational trauma that happens. But alongside of the intergenerational trauma, there's another methodology that colonialism happens to use, and that's what we call divide and conquer. Uh, so if you can divide a people into segments and have them fight amongst themselves, then half of your work is already done. And part of what was done at one point is that the Canadian government would go to the Indigenous settlements and reservations and say, listen, if you would move to the city, to an urban area, you will find better education, you'll find better jobs, and you'll have a better standard of living. So all you have to do is agree to give up your membership to your Indigenous community. And there were numerous members of my community that I guess followed the carrot, so to speak, in hopes of gaining a better life, not only for themselves but for their children and their grandchildren, because they wanted all of their descendants to be educated better and to have better opportunities. And once they got there, once they said okay, it was a way of the people who stayed on the reservation to feel betrayed, to feel abandoned by their own people, because why would you leave your community to go live in an urban area that the colonizers have set up and follow this ideological carrot into a world that you know won't help, won't exist? Because as many of us over the years have always been told, you can't eat money, you can't drink oil. We have to be able to treat our natural resources with respect, and we have to make them sustainable for our future generations. And the people who left the reservations to thinking that they were going to get a better standard of life often found out a little too late that they were tricked. And so now we have the Indigenous people who are living in these urban areas who are now trying to reconnect to their culture and their teachings and their language. And when they first started doing this, say 20, 30 years ago, they met with a lot of resentment. So the Indigenous people on the reservations were calling all the urban natives apples, because we were red on the outside, but on the inside we were white, because that's the society that we followed through onto. and we were taught, we grew up in, and we adapted to. And so we urban natives were then not accepted by our own people because they felt betrayed by us, they felt abandoned by us, and they didn't want to deal with us anymore because they didn't feel like they should have to teach us our culture anymore or teach us our language because we abandoned that. And we lived in a society where the white people or non-indigenous people didn't accept us because we weren't part of their culture. We weren't part of the whether you're Irish ancestry or English ancestry or French or whatever it happened to be. We were not part of that group in reality. So now we're stuck in between two worlds. And so we are now seeing that change. We are in what the ancestors call the seventh generation. The seventh generation is the time for change. It's the time when we see a shift in the world. And we are starting to see that. We are seeing our youth who are hungry for the traditional knowledge, hungry for our teachings, and hungry to reclaim our language. That is all starting. And it has been starting for a little while now, for the last, 20 odd years or so. But it's now, in this last 10 years, really become strong. And so that is a positive thing to see. And when I say becoming strong, it's kind of inspired. This next, the song I'm going to play to end our stream. So the song is called Strong, and it's a story of being stuck between these two worlds, not being accepted in either one, but belonging to both. And it features the voice of Fab Feline, our son, when he was about 4 years old. So the little kid voice you hear in this track is Fab Feline when he was really little. So I'm so glad I recorded him at that age talking, and the story behind what he says. Because what you'll hear him say is, he don't know how sweet I am. And we first heard him say that on the way home from daycare. And, we're on the bus heading home, and I said, "How was your day?" And he said, "It was fine, except this kid pushed me." And I said, "Well, why did he push you?" And he said, "Well, because he doesn't know how sweet I am." And I thought of all the ways that he could have looked at that. The kid's a bully, the kid's a creep, the kid's this or that. He said, no, he just doesn't know how sweet I am. And it was kind of a teaching from him to me to look at things through the eyes of a child and to understand that what comes from the mouths of our children or our babies, as we say, can be teachings that we should really grab onto. And so I wrote this song it was a poem I wrote that turned into a song called Strong. And so I'm going to play that song. And while that's playing, I'm going to put in our rate call, and I'm going to ask you all to copy a rate call and come with us to the next channel, and share the love of somebody else. Keep in mind, Tuesday is our music night. So today's Monday now. So tomorrow night, we'll be back to music, and we've added some new songs to the song list. So I hope that you'll pop in and make some requests, and that'll be on the Dark Native channel, which is the DJ channel. And I want to say again, a big yanko, Faustian Oregon, having resub now 5 months on this channel. I can't even remember when this channel started, but it couldn't have been much. It has to be about 5 months ago. And Jaybear stuff, and having resubbed as well. And thank you both for your ongoing support. And Bark Eater, thank you for being here. And Frankenpanty, thank you for being here. And anybody who may have been lurking, even the lurks are awesome. So thank you. And you got your founder's badge. Yes. Yeah. You're one of the few. And Jaybear's got a founder's badge. And I think Fantastic Kitty might have one. But that would be expected. So let me get this song playing. This is called Strong. And again, it's got Fat Beeline's voice in there. I hope you catch that. And I see a flashing. What's that flashing on my screen? Oh, Frankenpanty. Thank you so much for your sub. I appreciate that. I hope you enjoy this song. I think that it was, when I write poems, I don't write a lot of them, but when I write them, I try to make them meaningful. And this, for me, was meaningful in the sense of where it comes from, and how I identify. So I hope you appreciate this, and I hope you enjoy it.
You don't know how sweet I am. You don't know how sweet I am. I am what I am, and I am sweet. You don't know how sweet I am.
Yo, check this. I might not be what you want me to be, so you might not see what you want to see. But if you got a minute, listen to what I gotta say. Cause it's a brand new year, and it's a brand new day. See, there's a gap between my culture and the life that I lead. So some will call me an apple, and some a bad seed. They have no idea how my heart will bleed. Their words and attitudes are things I just don't need.
You don't know how sweet I am. I am what I am, and I am sweet.
You see, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of where I'm from. Those ones spreading racism, they're just fucking dumb. Now if you're looking at my life, and you say I've assimilated, to simplify things, just a little more complicated. See, I'm a modern day native, with a modern day life. I have modern day problems, and modern day strife. Now I hear other natives, they talk about the past. And will I do the same? Fuck that. See, I've got no time to dwell on what's already done. I've got too many things that I want to do. And they don't include knives, and they don't include guns. I'm talking about knowledge and sharing it too. See, my people need to learn how to cohabitate. Get rid of the anger and get rid of the hate. We gotta stop for a minute and learn to educate. And you'll see in the end, we all have to communicate. I know there'll be a time to make a stand and a time to fight, but if you do that, make sure the cause is right. Because if the cause is right, and the cause is just, greater numbers of people will be backing you up.
Or any other parties, even the Conservatives now. But now that precedent has been set with like, who's this? Who's this? Dark Native. Lovely to see you, Dark Native. Welcome in, viewers. Welcome in, viewers. I hope you had a great stream, Dark Native. Raiders, welcome in. Lovely to see you. Welcome to the show. I am Dave Legend. We are doing some horrific analysis of polling in Scotland, and we're discussing NHS reform and massive cuts to disabled people's welfare benefits, which are happening under a Labour government in this country. If you're not already following Dark Native